What's happening, sports fans? We welcome you to the second playoff edition of the CIF San Diego Section's official podcast. I am Christian Pedersen. I'm joined by Tommy Morris, my co-host, and we are, as always, joined by Bodie DeSilva from Scorebook Live. Scorebook Live, the official digital content provider of all things high school sports across the entire universe. They've got the articles, the photos, the top 10. Bodie literally got a poll last year. They got like 1 million clicks type thing. Like they got everything you could possibly want there. Download the SB Live Sports app. You can visit scorebooklive.com. We should also, before we go any further in today's show, say thank you to the U.S. Army for their continued support of San Diego Prep Insider. Let's check out everything they're up to. All right, thanks again to the U.S. Army. And we are on to the Open Division. Let's talk about this, guys. We have, since our last coming together to talk about these squads, now have an official tagline that we can add on to Carlsbad's 5-star, yada, yada, Elite 11 type this camp, yada, yada. The quarterback list now also includes he is an Alabama commit. We will insert the cheering applause sound effect afterwards. So yeah, you would think that maybe we could there's one version of this podcast where we could just say, hey, it's the Open Division. Carlsbad is just going to roll tide through all of this, and there is no point in doing these podcasts. But let's have some fun. Let's talk about each one of these games. Let's see if there's maybe somebody on this Zoom that agrees or disagrees overall potentially with how this could go in Bodie DeSilva or Tommy Morris. Let's start, though, that first game, Carlsbad and Poway. Poway, a refresh. They have not been in the Open Division in recent years. Bodie can maybe potentially, if I go with Tommy first, come up with whether or not Poway has made Open Division more than once or twice in terms of any. So Tommy,
Poway was in the Open Division in 2013, the first ever year, and they have not been since.
And if I'm correct, that was a predetermined Open that was like based off of how the previous year had gone or something like that. I remember thinking.
You may be right on that. I'd have to go back and look.
If I think back, I want to say the first couple of years were not the same. At least, whether or not they were what I'm saying, I want to say they weren't the same as what they are now in terms of how they got picked.
Correct. Yeah. 2013, looking back, it ended up being 8 public school teams. So I think that would make more sense with Saints, Cathedral, some of the others not being eligible due to enrollment back then.
So yeah, okay, let's go with first Open Division time appearance for them in the modern-ish era of what we're understanding to be the new way that we think about high school football here in San Diego. So this is fun. I love this, but I'm curious for either of you guys. We'll start with you still, though, Tommy. Can anybody upset Carlsbad, or is this going to be a purple couple weeks?
No, I don't think it's going to be as big of a walkover as people may seem to think it will be. I think all 3 of these teams have a legitimate chance of beating them. I think obviously Poway being the 4 seed has the most difficult path for it to happen. But Connor Rath, 182 yards a game, that's not an accident. They can run the ball. If they can control the ball and control the clock, they got a shot at this. However, on the other side, right, we talk about saying all the time, obviously going to Alabama, that's pretty awesome. But Mason Walsh, running back, also pretty dang good, 102 yards per game. I think it will be Carlsbad, but I'm not looking at this Open Division as going to be an obvious one versus, then tier and then the other 3. I think anybody does have a legitimate chance of beating Carlsbad. I just don't think it's going to happen this week.
Bodie DeSilva from Scorebook Live, your thoughts?
Yeah, I do like Carlsbad in this one, but I do think Poway will find a way to score. They're super run heavy. They do not look to throw very often, but when you have a big offensive line and Connor Rath running behind it, there's a good reason for doing what they do. So I think Poway will find a way to get on the board, but I think it's somewhere in the range of maybe Carlsbad 35-21. Unfortunate for Poway that the season would end abruptly like that after going undefeated, but that's how the system works. And I was glad to see that their coach tweeted they want to be in the Open Division. They want the challenge. So that's awesome this time of year, because oftentimes there's too many coaches that are, and I'm not just saying in our section, I've seen in this other section of trying to drop down to some lower divisions. So,
this feels like a good opportunity for some new discourse, for some new voices to be heard, some new coaches to step in and necessarily, reflect a changing of attitude and positivity toward the top half of this Open Division, Division One grouping of football teams that shape the culture, if you will, of San Diego high school football. Next, we've got Lincoln and Madison. Lincoln, the 2 seed, Madison, 3 seed. This is the second time that this has happened in as many years, if I am correct, that they played toward the end or to close out the regular season, and then again in the first or second round of the playoffs. So I have that correct, Bodie?
Yeah, last year this was forget if it was a semi or a quarter. I was at the game, but Madison had won the regular season game, and then Lincoln came back and ran all over them and won the playoff game. So we'll see if it's the reverse or if Lincoln can win both.
I was gonna say the editorializing of it being a running all over taking shots at that game from last year. Yes.
I can just remember Rod coming down the sideline, and I'm trying to get out of the way in case he gets knocked out of bounds.
They also played in the spring pandemic season. So this is 5 times now in 16 months for them to be playing. This is an epic rivalry, a title weight fight. You can use all of the cliches of you can't beat a team. It's hard to beat a team twice. Like you can be like I was saying, like Rick Jackson dropped one, intentionally holding stuff back to not make. I don't think any of that cares or matters when both of these squads culturally care as much about football as I truly believe that they do. I think these are 2 teams that are always exerting their max effort all the time to win in the best possible way. So I think you're going to get a lot of adjustments and changes from last games. You very easily could get the same thing from last time that they played because Lincoln's defense is maybe just that good. It could just be that, like Chris Fuels came on here and said before the season, they got the best defense in California as they believe internally. Like they could just actually have that. So I think that this will be an insane game. This will be a better game probably than the Poway Carlsbad game, in my opinion. And I am really curious to see if Lincoln can continue the postseason dominance. Your thoughts, though, Bodie De Silva?
Yeah, having seen this game just what it was 2 weeks ago down the regular season, Lincoln didn't do a ton offensively, and they didn't need to. Their defense was so good. Rod clearly was not 100%. I'd heard coming in he was a little banged up, but Rod at less than 100%, still really good. He still ran for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, and was kind of careful to go out of bounds when he need be to not make it any. So I think with the bye week, he can be even more explosive. I just want to see from Madison, what did they do offensively? Because they just did not look in sync too many of the times. We're not completing passes. The run game was inconsistent, but a lot of that is maybe on the Lincoln defense being so good. So just curious to see what changes are made in this point, but I do have Carlsbad and Lincoln in the final, so I will stick with that.
Tommy Morris, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's always weird when again, I'm sure both these teams did the same thing, do the math, and you're like, well, it kind of seems like we're going to have to play each other next week, or I guess in this case, 2 weeks from now. So you don't want to show too much. So I wouldn't take too much solace or to put too much investment in what happened 2 weeks ago. However, I do think Lincoln is a better team. I think they have the best player in San Diego. I don't think that I'm going stretching out on a limb there saying that Roderick Robinson is the best player in San Diego. I think it's pretty well established and has been for a while. So if he is healthy and they keep the ball in his hands, that defense, I think, has Madison's number a little bit. So I like Lincoln here, and then setting up potentially an awesome game in a week from now with Carlsbad. So I like the Hornets.
This is one where I would love to have a consolation game, that third place game to maybe determine who goes to like a state playoff type tournament would be great. Like any permutation of 2 of these teams going on to winners bracket, losers bracket would be great. Man, you just also love to see that in a section, I think San Diego wide, that has not necessarily shown outwardly that, hey, we can produce the same level of football talent as anybody else. We've got an Alabama commit, we've got a Georgia commit, we've got a multitude of mid D1 type vibes, offers and commits and interest in all 4 of these open division teams. It's a deep year. It surprisingly, by the end of this season, turned out to be a very deep year. And I hope everybody appreciates that as they head out to pick a game on Friday night. If you want to get scores, results, highlights, photos, anything like that, make sure you download the SB Live Sports app or visit scorebooklive.com. If there is nothing else that I have missed, I will say go check out all the other division videos that we have done today, and we'll talk to you guys next week, sports fans.